With Elden Ring finally coming out recently, I got to thinking about From Software's character creators. I've spent endless hours in each game meticulously sculpting faces to fill out my roster with unique and varied characters. One thing that stuck out to me over all this time is the color. And not just in From Software games. Over the last decade, I've noticed a heinous and unforgivable fault with several AAA games, and I can't stay silent any longer. Are you sitting down? Sometimes, color squares don't match the actual resulting color. Character customization has been around for quite some time, but the 7th console generation was about the time that technology allowed characters to be detailed enough to get some good mileage out of it. And of course, some developers pulled customization off better than others, and there are many factors to a good character creator, but today we're focusing on color. And this actually extends beyond character creation in some cases. The issues with color can be cast into 3 broad categories: bad squares, false lighting, and delayed reaction. The first is arguably the most harmless, but also presumably the easiest to fix. This little color square should match whatever it's being applied to. And a lot of games get this right, especially when it comes to the bold, vibrant colors. But some games have issues with the subtler colors. Take Destiny 2 for example. Many of the hair colors match up pretty well, but if you look at these 2 squares, you'll notice that the lighter square results in a darker gray. I mean, color tones aside, that's just backwards. And then these 2 squares here are drastically different, but the hair color's pretty similar. Cyberpunk is an even worse offender on this front. Honestly, Cyberpunk is half the reason I made this video. First of all, nobody likes manipulating a cursor with their controller. Let's just get that out of the way. As for the actual colors, Cyberpunk is an absolute mess, particularly with the hair color. I look at this palette and I have no idea what to make of these squares, and as I start clicking on them, I get more confused. Why are there 3 different dark browns? Why do these 2 blue squares look way more different from each other than the hair colors? Why is there a secret 4th brown disguised as cotton candy? Who the hell did these gradients? They tell me nothing about the color pattern of the hair. And what fucking order are these in? Maybe if they organized the colors, there wouldn't be 4 browns. If you're making a character in this game, you pretty much have to click on every square because so many of them are just vague suggestions as to what the color actually is. And on top of all this, you can't even create a custom color because everything is all presets. I can understand the face presets to a degree, but I can't imagine it's very difficult to just throw a color wheel in there. Anyway, our second flavor of color trickery is false lighting. Sometimes you'll spend a ton of time in the character creation menu fine-tuning your character, making sure everything's just right, only to find that they look completely different in the actual game world where it really matters. This can apply to the physical features as well, but again, we're focused on colors here. One example of this is 2015's Need for Speed, where you customize your car in a well-lit, dry garage, and then you drive out into the dark, rainy night. And wait, did I pick the wrong car? Nope, that just looks noticeably whiter in this lighting. Dragon's Dogma has an interesting wrinkle here in that the character creation menu is really bad at rendering dark things. You can see it here in the shadows, but it gets really rough when you pick this super dark preset. It's not much better for the less extreme dark skin tones either. But when you pop out of the character creator, it looks totally fine color-wise. Thankfully, this game, along with a few other ones, allow you to change your character later in the game, which is a fantastic addition. Flavor number 3 is the delayed reaction. This one has a little more variety than the other 2. The most basic version of this is a customization screen that just loads in the colors or patterns slowly. See No Man's Sky or Jedi Fallen Order. Really a minor inconvenience. Then you have something like Nier Automata, where you have to enter and exit a menu to see what your color tube results in. And some of them are not totally accurate to the hair color. But the worst in this category would have to be The Witcher 3 with the armor dyes. The dyes are items that you have to craft or purchase, and it's nice that once you have them, you can see what they would look like on any given armor piece. But the dyes you can buy are not cheap, and you can't see how they would look on your armor before buying them. And if you want a dye that the merchant doesn't have or doesn't have enough of, you have to find the blueprint for that dye and then collect enough ingredients to create the dye, which can be a real chore. And the effects of the dyes really vary from one armor piece to another. Now, some of you may have noticed I haven't mentioned Bethesda or Bioware up to this point. And that's because they do things a little different. They've both adopted the slider system for their colors. Just move the cursor along this bar and see what pops up. At least up to 2015, I can't be bothered with their newer games. Anyway, they've typically got the range of standard hair colors with 1 or 2 unusual ones. It's a pretty inoffensive method of color selection. The first Dark Souls did something pretty similar. Actually, the Souls games have issues from all 3 of the categories I've talked about so far. So Fromsoft games are mostly slider based, even with the colors, though there are some exceptions, typically with the skin color. And boy, are they a hoot! The color squares in most Souls games are laughable. Go ahead and guess which one of these squares this skin color correlates to. Did you guess this one? Well, congratulations, you're wrong. It's actually this one, obviously. Fortunately, the creation menu lighting was typically pretty telling for how your character would actually look. With the exception of Dark Souls 2, because if you decided you wanted to have a lighter skinned character, well... Lastly, in Dark Souls 1, you start the game as beef jerky, so you don't know what your character will really look like until you escape the asylum, especially since they decided it would be a good idea to cover your character's face with a texture in the menu. So now we have Elden Ring. Honestly, I can't find any faults with their colors. The color squares have been fixed, there are no surprises when actually starting the game, and you can change your appearance whenever you want in the Round Table Hold. Pair this with the ability to respec and you can have a completely different character if you want. But I digress. Ultimately, this whole color thing may not be the most important thing in a game, but I couldn't help noticing all these little issues in various games over the years. And there are plenty of games that do a good job with them. Honestly, the Souls games were a big contributor to these issues, and they seem to have it under control now. If I were to ask one thing of all developers with character customization, it would be to allow us to change the character after the fact. Many games do this already, but for those that don't, it can sometimes be frustrating. If I were to ask for 2 things, I'd say, always have a color wheel. Thanks for watching. Maybe check out this Elden Ring video.